talk about who you are today, I guess. Okay. So you're my cousin, right? And growing up, I would never have imagined you to be the religious person that you are today.
Yes.
And so, I don't know, kind of just share, like, did you see that this is where you would be?
No, not at all. Growing up, I know I was like the jokester of the family and just like always clowning around, never really serious.
Yeah, I don't even remember anything Christian. I don't remember anything Christian always, or Catholic come out of your mouth.
Yes.
Like you went to a private school.
All my life. Yeah. Well, all my life up until high school, Catholic high school. And then went to Cal State Long Beach. But yeah, went to Catholic school, grew up learning about Jesus, but it was never really like, it was just part of our culture. We're Filipino, so, my mom always made us pray.
So when you were with your friends, like in elementary school, high school, college, were you the one that they knew was like, oh, she's all about Jesus?
No, not at all. I even had friends that knew that I was Catholic and wanted rosaries and stuff like that and wanted things like that, and I didn't even think twice. I was like, oh yeah, talk to my mom. Like one of my best friends, Kim, was actually asking about being Catholic. I always remember that, and it was after college. That's when I met her, and it was just like she was actually asking about our faith, and I was just like, oh yeah, just talk to my mom about that. Like it was my mom's thing or something, not mine.
Your mom was very Catholic,
yes,
very religious,
very devout. Yes.
Walking into your house, just seeing all the statues, and oh my goodness, it was very intimidating, right?
Yes.
So in college, I remember going out with you and your friends and our cousins and stuff. Like we would go out and drink.
Yeah.
At any
living the life.
At any time during that moment, did you think, "Oh, Jesus is partying with you"?
No, my gosh, I never thought of Jesus. If anything, it was. I think when I thought of Jesus, I always thought that it was like I'd be in trouble or something.
Okay.
Like I wasn't doing anything bad, but anytime Jesus would come up or going to church, I think it's because like I didn't want to go to church. And so when I moved out of the house for college, my mom still called me to go to church. And so I'd be like, oh, I'd panic. So then I have this representation of God that was like, it was just like, oh, that's just, like I go, yeah, Mom, I went to church. And so I started saying all these things, just being careless about it. Like it was nothing. Like my faith was just, I don't know.
How about the guys that you dated? Were they religious? Were they into Jesus?
No. Everyone was just good, like learning. We were in college, just having fun, just like living life, just growing up was just like honestly just about having fun and trying to get a good job, trying to learn some skills to get a good paying job and try to keep moving forward so you can have a family. And that was like the goals. It was just like, okay, be a nurse or be a doctor or have like a good occupation where it'll pay for, a family, like you'll take care of yourself and a family. And that was the goals, just to have all of that. And I don't know, like coming from a big Filipino family, there were always kids in our lives. And because, I don't know, I was more career oriented. I really liked the fashion industry, and that really, I loved things. Looking back, it's like I was very materialistic, like I wanted bags, I wanted shoes, I liked looking cute, and it was just having fun. And
if what I could remember growing up and like seeing you like as older, like in college or even in your career, like it was just all about fashion. Definitely wasn't about God.
Yeah.
Like I didn't see that at all. So I guess so what happened in your life that like what happened that made you feel that like God was real, that Jesus is real, that this whole faith, this Jesus like was real? Like what happened to you?
Well, I was already living a fine life, like just getting my career taken care of, like, I was
had a nice job.
Yeah, had a good job. Yeah. I drove a Mercedes, I was living life. I was like checking off the boxes of all my goals that I had for myself, and then just trying to, meet the right guy. And then I guess finally I did. And that changed my whole, then I was like, okay, now I want a family. Because at first I was like, okay, I had relationships and it's like, okay, I don't need a family because it's career woman. Like I want to travel, I want to do all these things. This is like what life's all about, I wanted to travel, and I had a job that got me traveling, and I got to see the world, and I was enjoying it, and it was something I liked doing. And then when I finally met Carlos, my whole thing shifted to family, like my whole
mindset, your desires,
goals. It changed to wanting a family now, as opposed to career. I mean, I still had my career and everything, but now I wanted a family. Now it was like, okay, this is a guy that I could one day marry. And
at this point, were you already like religious, or did you?
No, I mean, I had
like you just went to church on Sundays.
Yeah.
Or not even every Sunday.
I was the CEO of the church, Christmas and Easter only, because after moving out of the house, then it's like I had my freedom to choose when I want to go, and I would go probably because I felt guilty, because you get used to, like I still have my mom saying, hey, did you go to church? Hey, did you go to church? It's like, so she was still always in my ear saying those things. But if it were up to me, I would rather do other things.
Okay, so you had your career, you did that, and that was a check off. You did it. Now the next thing to check off was getting married. You got married, and now it's like, okay.
Now I wanted a family, and Carlos wanted a family, and so we tried for 5 years, and I was already older now, and we struggled with having a baby. We tried IVF, and it didn't work, and so that's when we turned more to prayer, and I think that's when I started asking questions about our faith and everything else, because it's like when you are struggling with something that, like you've tried everything physically possible. I mean, we were already doing all the science ways. At the same time too, God was working, where it was like, my mom kept saying, just pray, do this, do that. I was like, that doesn't make sense, I don't know. And then, I would go to church, and then people would say, hey, join this. I was like, okay, I'm doing that. And then it wasn't until a friend of ours, Rowena, who had was diagnosed with bile duct cancer, and she was Ruth, my sister's one of her college best friends, and it was her that had like faith healers come in, because she was learning about her faith because she had a terminal illness, and then because of that, it opened up doors for me to say yes to going to pray for her, and for her healing. And so I remember one time she had someone named Brother. Oh, okay. So she had someone come in from the Philippines to pray for healing, and so there was just a miracle of the petals. And I thought that was weird. And my sister said, "Come on, let's go pray. Let's go pray." And I was like, nah. And she's like, what are you doing? You're just watching TV. Come on, don't you want to pray for your baby? Don't you want to have a baby? It's like, you've been wanting to pray for a baby, and come on, this is an opportunity. I'm like, all right. So she dragged me over there, and then it was one of Rowena's prayer events to pray for her healing. And then this guy had this miracle of the petals, where on this petal would have a Catholic icon on it. And he would come in and then anoint it and you put it on your neck, and then something appears. And apparently it healed a lot of people. Mm-hmm. Like there's been testimonies of healing for this. And so of course I was skeptical. I was like, okay, what is this? But because I wasn't doing anything, my sister was right. It's like, hey, just come with us. So I did. So and then yes. I told my younger sister to come, yes. And then we got the petals, and then, all of this stuff, and then something appeared on mine, and something appeared on everyone else's. And I had Saint Therese of Lisieux, and I'm like, who is this? I thought it was Mama Mary because it was like a nun and whatever. And I'm like, I don't know any of the Catholic icons and what this all means, And then I had that, but someone devout came in. I was like, what is this? And she said, oh, that's Saint Therese of Lisieux. I was like, okay, so what do we do? And she pray for her intercession. I'm like, okay. And that was it. And then we got a rosary from that night. And then I guess time went on, and then, you know, each month that you know, like we were trying to have a baby and I'd get my period or something, then each time I would always turn to God whenever there was something bad. And that's when I'd pray and go, okay, I don't understand. Why is this? We have good careers. We're ready to have a family. And there's people that don't have families. I mean, they're not even together. And it doesn't make sense. And people that can't afford having a baby. And we're here we have all this love to give. And yet God's not granting us a baby. And there's no explanation really, except for just keep trying and then try IVF, you know, and then the doctors had no explanation really, except for keep trying, keep paying. So then, all of these signs led up to, there's so many different signs that led up to going on a pilgrimage. So with that ministry that Rowena was part of.
So going to this, up until the point of this pilgrimage, you were starting to come around to
I was kind of like forced to pray because I was suffering through something. Secretly suffering because I didn't share it with anyone, because it's like, it wasn't just me, it was with my husband too. So we had this struggle between us two that we didn't want anyone's bad mojo or negativity to get in the way, so we just kept it to ourselves. And then each time we were also hopeful that it would happen, and then we could just say, hey, we're pregnant, you know, because everyone was trying to have babies at the time. Like all our friends and cousins were at the age where everyone was having babies.
We're getting to the good part.
Yeah.
It's all good. We're just gonna keep on going.
Yeah.
Okay.
So.
So you're not there. You're seeking. You're desiring. You're questioning more about the faith, and then now this pilgrimage.
Yes, this pilgrimage.
Well, I'm not trying to cut you off.
No, it's okay. Yeah, it's okay because I can be long-winded on everything.
Okay.
There's so much. I mean, it's like, gosh, what do you talk about? There's just so much detail. So
we're trying to make this video very short. But
okay. So.
Or whatever the Holy Spirit wants. So.
Yeah. So on this pilgrimage, it was a Marian pilgrimage for 18 days that was offered, and again, I didn't want to, you know, like it, just thinking about a pilgrimage, I was like, no, it doesn't sound fun.
And it didn't
I'd rather be at like Hawaii relaxing, because people are like, oh, you're just stressed and you don't know it. Yes, baby?
Can I go outside?
Yeah, you can. Oh, well, who else is going to go out with you? Just by yourself? Just hang out with everyone inside, please.
I don't know where's Noah.
Okay. Hold on, we're recording something. Thank you. Okay, and now I forgot where I was, but...
pilgrimage.
Yes. Oh, 18-day pilgrimage to Portugal, Spain, and France.
You would rather be in
Hawaii. I would rather be in Hawaii trying to de-stress so that way I can have a baby and this and that. But then this pilgrimage was offered, and it was like 18 days of praying.
I need help putting on my socks. Noah's outside though.
Oh, goodness gracious.
I need help.
Okay. Ask Nina Ruth. Ask Nina Ruth, she'll help you.
Dude, this is so crazy.
Okay, wait. It's a good part. It's a good part.
Because just getting to this point for you to share, because again, it's not easy. Mm-hmm, and now it's like, now in a way we're being attacked, right?
Yeah.
But we're going to pursue.
Really. It's actually making me more comfortable to speak, because it's like, okay, this was
I
all spontaneous.
I felt you getting into it.
Yeah, so it's okay. It's good. It makes it more casual.
Okay.
Yeah, because I'm not good at speaking in front of people, but in front of a video camera and a microphone. But
it's real, so.
Yes. Okay, so we were at.
Well, going on this pilgrimage.
Yes.
So not only did you have to say yes, because you'd rather be in Hawaii.
Yeah.
You would have to also convince your husband to go too.
Yes.
Because he's part of it.
Yes.
And so,
yeah. And also it cost money, and we were already down lots of money from the IVF. And so my mom offered, oh yeah, you know, I'll pay for it. And of course my husband's like, no, we're not gonna take money from your mom. Like, I can't do that. And I was like, yeah. And then it's something I didn't want to go to. And she was just like, no, but I really feel. So she had messages herself saying she has to pay for us to go, and both of us to go. And then I was like, okay. And then sure enough, I was still praying throughout everything. And then Rowena had passed. And then all of these other divine inspiration and nudges were happening. And I was just like, man, this is so crazy. So the time for us to pay, it was another divine intervention. It's like, oh my gosh. Gosh, there's so many things. I don't even know which to choose.
So what happened? So let's get to the juicy part.
Yes.
So what on this pilgrimage happened? Like, I know what happened, but what happened?
No, but really quick, I have to say the divine intervention with my husband, because he was like, I have to stay home, and you know, you have all the signs, so you go to this 18-day pilgrimage. And I was like, dude, if we're trying to have a baby, I figure this is probably our vacation to spend time together, you know, to have our baby. And then he was just like, but I got it. I was like, I understand. Okay, maybe I'm just supposed to go because I have all the signs. He's like, yeah, God showed me no signs. So I just need to work because I'm a per diem at work. So I'm just going to stay home for if they call me. I was like, all right, totally makes sense. Let's do that. So I called my mom. Okay, mom, I'm going to take your money and I'm going to go. And she's like, oh, good. Yay. Like, tell Carlos too. And I was like, no, mom, you have me. So just be happy about that. And she's just like, wait, I got a message that you and Carlos were supposed to go together. I was like, mom, no, just be happy I'm going. And she said, oh, okay, I'll just keep praying for him. I was like, okay, yeah, you do that. Okay, where's your credit card? I'll pay for this, for my trip. I'm supposed to go.
When you said that, yeah, you just keep praying for him.
Just
like, did you believe?
Yeah, well, I mean, like, mom, like, I just saw her as pushing it. Like, mom, I'm already going. Be happy I'm going. Like, I'm like, I'm gonna go. You've been telling me to go and you're gonna pay for this. And I kept saying no. And now I'm saying yes. And then it's still not enough because now my husband's still supposed to go. And we already had this conversation. We're already fine with it. So now I have to convince her, like, okay, mom. And she's like, okay, but I have this sign that both of you guys are supposed to go. And, you know, and I was like, okay, mom, but I'm gonna go. She goes, okay, I'll just keep praying. Then sure enough, I was like, yeah, you just keep praying. And then I'll pay for my flight that night, right? So she gives me her credit card and that's it. I hang up, then 2 hours later, Carlos calls me and says, hey babe, guess what? He was at work. It's like, I just got laid off. And I was like, oh, looks like God opened it up for you. You know, he said he had no signs. So I'm like, oh, and he goes, yeah, I guess he did. And so he ended up coming with me. And then on that trip, praise God. And so on that trip, we took it as like, he even said, okay, I'm not going to complain about anything, babe. Because I'm like thinking, should he even come with me? Because he might complain about all this. Because we're going to go on a holy place. We're going to pray. And I'm like, I don't even like to pray. And imagine you're just like, oh gosh. So I'm just like, okay, we're going to both be open-hearted to this. Because what have we got to lose? We still don't have a baby. And we'll just take it as, we both said, we'll take it as a vacation. I even said, oh babe, let me see if there's hotels that have pools, like cool pools to go to.
After how many years was this of trying?
Like 5 years, probably.
5 years,
like 4 or 5 years.
IVF and all the other
we tried.
stuff.
We tried 2 IVFs.
Okay.
Yeah, 2 IVFs. We still had one to do because it was like a package deal, and so we still had one to do. But instead of doing that, we did the pilgrimage first, and then on that pilgrimage, like just things were happening slowly, small things. And then because we were like, it was all about God, that's all you can focus on. You're not distracted with anyone else. Yeah. So it's like, really, you could start hearing God's voice, especially after, I think we were already there for 5 days and was constantly praying, but it was so much fun. We were having fun. I don't know, it's because we were with fun people. It was just cool already. So we took it at that. And I mean, we have to wake up early. Pilgrimages are rough, you know, and I was thinking we're going to have a vacation, like we're going to lounge by the pool at certain times, you know? But then, yeah, it was because we were staying at good hotels, and that's actually what made me feel like, okay, I'll go on this thing.
Oh, what are we going to eat today?
Yeah. I was like, okay, I'll take this as a vacation. So it turns out, and we went to Lourdes, Fatima, Portugal, Spain, and France, and all the Marian sites there for, and then it wasn't until Garabandal, Spain, I think it was 7 days into our trip. But there was already signs leading up, at least for me. Like my heart was getting softened to certain things. I'm like, oh my God, why does like the gospel readings all make sense? Like why, like things were like leading up, like I would ask questions after every night. And then all of a sudden, like the next day in mass, like my questions were being answered. And it's like, dude, I didn't tell these questions to anyone. And then me and Carlos would talk about things and like, oh, that was cool, how that happened and this happened. And we'd talk about things and then the next day it like affirmed things. And I'm like, okay, that's cool. So I think that's what we're enjoying.
Affirm, what affirm?
Like just questions that we had, there were answers, going to mass, going to these pilgrimage sites. Like we just, I don't know that I can't even recall any questions specifically.
Was it like, yes, at mass, the readings were
I think it was the readings. It was through people, like them not knowing what questions we had, but then them giving us answers. I was like, what the heck? How did that happen? You know, so it's like only God can do that because everything was in our heads, you know. And then for some reason I was able to see all that. Like I guess being on a pilgrimage, just concentrating on God or being fascinated with God really makes you able to see God working. I think that's what was happening. And then finally in Garabandal, Spain was when
this This is the part?
Well, this is when a mystical thing happened to me where God, Mama Mary, and all, well, there's so much more in details in between, but yeah, the main thing, God, Mama Mary, and all the angels and saints showed to me during Holy Mass there. It was like 6 a.m. in the morning. And for some reason, all of the readings, I was like, oh my gosh, why do I understand this? And they started talking, like there were petitions of abortion.
Before the Mass, like you didn't, none of this stuff like made sense to you. Like when...
No, it was more me questioning. I was questioning a lot of things, but things were being answered.
But the readings, like say before this, when you go to church.
No, I was always daydreaming in church, and I was just checking a box, like, oh, I have to go to church because, you know, my mom had raised us that way, and it's like, okay, let's go to church, you know.
So now at this pilgrimage site, at this Mass, your heart was
open to it all. And I don't know, like, I don't know what it was, just the Holy Spirit was just working with all of us because we were happy on this pilgrimage. Like we were surrounded by awesome people. We had questions and they were being answered by God. And all of a sudden then, what happened? Oh, I went to confession the night before my mystical thing happened to me. And I remember on the bus, I'm going back, I'm kind of like backtracking, but hopefully you can catch on. But it was on the bus in Garabandal, Spain. I remember our spiritual advisor had mentioned something amazing is going to happen. Like he already prophesied that something was going to happen. And I completely forgot about that. But God made me remember as soon as something happened. And I was just like, oh my gosh, he was just connecting the dots after. And like things, that's how things were happening. Like things were being said, but it's like, it didn't show till later. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm connecting the dots. Like, or God's connecting the dots for me. Something was happening. And then we were on our way to Garabandal, Spain. And I remember this clearly because Carlos was sitting to my right. And they're showing the video of Garabandal, Spain, right? And what happened there. And it was like towards the end of the video. So I missed the whole thing. And we were Carlos and I were kind of going on this thing, just open to whatever happens. We didn't research anything. We didn't care to research anything. We're just going to like accept whatever happens. And that's how we looked at it, like, kind of like a vacation. Like, okay, let's just see what happens. So I was learning a lot of what the apparition sites were and why things were like, called Our Lady of Lourdes, and it's apparitions. Like I really didn't know that before. I just thought they were just churches, and I didn't care to look any deeper. I was like, dude, apparitions, that's so insane. This is so cool. This like really stirs my heart because it's like, oh my gosh, these things happen. They literally happen to little kids, like apparitions. Like how do they even know these prayers? How do they know these? It's like, oh, there's something in my heart that was just like, this is all real. But then I think that's the desire in my heart that I had. It was fun, like to understand all this and to realize that this is our Catholic faith that I just like didn't think of. And so anyways.
So that was the day before the mystical experience.
So the day before the mystical experience, we were on the bus, we were playing the movie and I had fallen asleep. And I didn't wake up until the end of the movie where it said prayer, penance, sacrifice. And it was like literally blinking. And I was just like, prayer, penance, sacrifice, prayer, penance. I was like, why is it blinking so like bright? And I'm like, then I looked around and I was like, what is happening? And then I felt like, oh my gosh, I have to go to confession. And before they were offering confession on a bus.
You had just gone to confession the day before though.
No, sorry. See, this is why I backtracked and I got confused. Oh. Sorry. I was already talking about a mystical experience and then I went back. And so this is where I was like called to go to confession. So many things.
So the mystical experience is what?
So the mystical experience happened in Garabandal, but now I went back to on our way to Garabandal because I'm leading up to how that mystical experience happened. Sorry. Yeah, I don't know. The spirit just like has me all over the place. So thank you for keeping me on track. Okay. So anyways, prayer, penance, sacrifice. And then when I saw that, I was just like, oh my gosh, what is this? What is this? And in my heart, for some reason, I'm like, dude, I have to go to confession. Like, why do I have to go to confession? Like, why I have this call?
Keep talking.
When confession was already offered to us on the bus to go to, but then I was like, oh, people are gonna hear me on the bus. Like, this is weird. Why would you do confession on the bus? And I was like, oh, I don't need to go to confession. I'll just go to confession whenever I feel like it. You know, like it wasn't something that I wanted to do. But then for some reason, when I woke up, I'm like, I have to go to confession. And then it was like, I have to talk to our spiritual advisor because he has a message for me. Why do I think that? Right? And I was like,
and you never got this stuff before.
No, I just woke up and I'm like, prayer, penance, sacrifice. And then all of these things happened and I'm like, knew I had to do it. So I was like, okay, I'm going to go to confession. And then I have to talk to that spiritual advisor that was heading up our group. And then I was like, dude, he's busy checking everyone in. I was like, when am I going to talk to him? And I was like, okay. And then I just told Carlos, I was like, babe, and he was like watching Avengers or something, you know, and I was like, babe, something's happening to me. And I said, I just woke up and I saw prayer, pen, and sacrifice. And I was like, I have to go to confession and I have to talk to Tito Vic. I was like, I have to talk to Tito Vic.
Spiritual.
Yeah, about like, and ask him that, because there's a message for me. And he goes, okay. And I just felt like, after I told him, he's like, okay. Oh, and then something happened where I felt like, oh my God, something's gonna, like, not something bad's gonna happen, but I really felt like, not like I was gonna die, but then Carlos was like, I don't want you. I was like, no, it's all good stuff. Like something, it was like, oh my gosh, baby, something happened. Not something bad's gonna happen. I can't remember. Gosh, it was just like all a blur right now. But I was like, something, and he's like, wait, not like I'm gonna die or something, but I think he took it that way. And he's like, no, I don't want you to die. We don't have to have a baby. Like he was saying all these things because I was just like, I woke up in a panic, like, no, it's okay. I just have to go to confession. Like it was weird. It was like, I just have to go to confession. There's a message for me. And he's like, okay, you do that. And he was just like, okay, that was weird. And at the same time too, I was like, man, how am I gonna do this? You know, it was late at night. And then sure enough, that night, we were sitting across, the priest already did all the confessions on the bus. And that night during dinner, I was sitting across from the priest, our spiritual advisor, the priest that was with us, that was done with confessions. But I was like, oh, this is my opportunity. I was like, can I go to confession? I need to go to confession with you. And he's like, okay. And he looked tired, like he didn't want to, but he's like, all right, come to my room after this, after dinner, and then I'll prepare and do confession for you. And then sure enough, and I kind of felt bad because he felt like he was tired, you know, and I'm like, but I didn't care. I was like, I knew God wanted me to go to confession. So I was like, I was bold about asking, which I typically wouldn't do. And then he said, okay, fine. And then sure enough, Tito Vic, our spiritual advisor, stands up across the room. He didn't hear anything that I had. He didn't know anything that had been on the bus. He stood up and he said, hey, just in case anyone needs, there's Father Supino is going to open his room up for confessions for anyone. And Father, he's like, what? How did he? It was just between me and him. And it was quiet, like no one heard that. But then Tito Vic had a nudging too. He knew that that's what he was supposed to do, and he is very good at following and being obedient to the Lord's calling. So he had stood up and said that. I'm like, that was another awe and wonder. I'm like, oh, okay. And then after that, I ended up going to confession that night, and I was just so happy afterwards. And I just knew that, okay, we had 6 o'clock mass and whatever. And then I had to talk to Tito Vic after to see what my message was. And sure enough, that night, he told me that he had a message the night before that someone on this pilgrimage is struggling with having a baby and they're going to have a baby.
Like, you didn't tell him that?
No. Well, he knew we were struggling with having a baby. But he got a message of... he said, quickly, we need to pray over both of you guys. And so he prayed over us, and we got a message that a seed will be born in our bloodline. Pray for, the evil one does not want this to happen. And so pray for this. And that was our message from him. And then I was just like, oh, okay. And gosh, it was just, I can't describe this feeling that I had. It was just so much joy, and I was just like so at peace. And I was just so in awe of everything that just happened. So the next morning was Mass, Holy Mass there. And I had gone to confession, yes. And this is it, sorry. And I'm like, okay, I'm here at Mass. And then Mass went, and then, And then God, Mama Mary, and all the angels and saints showed to me. And Mama Mary said, pray for the pilgrims' prayers and petitions because they will come true. And I'm going to have a baby. And then I was just like, oh, how do I do that, Mama Mary? And then I just was quiet, and I had gone into ecstasy. I guess that's what they call it. I didn't know at the time, and I couldn't move. And my husband was just like, babe, are you okay? And I was like, it's okay, don't worry. He's like, it didn't sound like me. But then my sister, Ruth, was next to me, and she witnessed everything, and she just knew something was happening. And so she was just like, I wish she took a picture. We were just like, we'd always talk about it, like, oh, I wish she took a picture of it. And because, I was...
Not yourself?
Yeah, I was not myself. And I really just felt this calling, interior reflection that was so strong that I was like, oh okay, Mama Mary, whatever you wanted me to do. It was so strong that I literally thought I was going to die there and I would be happy to die there. Like, it was just like happiness. Like, I don't know what it was. And I just knew, it's not like I saw God, Mama Mary, and all the angels and saints as if they were just smiling down at me. It was just a tiny piece of heaven, and I already wanted to die. It was just a tiny piece of heaven. It's not fully everything like from heaven, you know? It was just like, they're just showing me a glimpse of it, and I was like, yes, oh my gosh. And I just was telling myself, oh my gosh, this is real. But my heart was just like, yes. My head was like, oh my gosh, am I going crazy? And then it was really just the journey coming back from my heart to my head. The journey typically is from your head to your heart, but now it's from my heart to articulate to my head to understand all of this. And so it's just like lots of wisdom afterwards, because coming back from there, I understood like all the gospel readings, like, oh my gosh. And then just learning and growing and saying yes. And I just had this desire to keep learning about Jesus. Now there was like no blockage, no wall. I was just like, hey, someone said do this. And I was like, oh yeah, I'm down. And I was open to all of this, and everything looked brighter and happier. And I still didn't have a baby.
Nice.
Yeah, I still didn't have a baby. There was nothing. It was just like this call, and I just knew I was going to have a baby because Mom Mary told me I would. And I didn't ask how or where, why. I just knew I would, and I was just going to wait. It was just God's timing. And of course, all of the Bible verses about waiting and being old, you know, as Sarah and Hannah and all of those praying for a baby. And I'm like, oh, this is all in the Bible, you know? And it's just like, okay, God's going to use me, and I'm going to be 90 when I have a baby. That's probably it. But in the meantime, I'm enjoying all of these gifts that he's giving me, like just making me feel just full of happiness and joy.
Like,
yeah.
But he's real.
Yeah. And so it was this whole different lifestyle that just happened afterwards. And then learning with Carlos.
So that was the experience that changed your life.
Yes,
and
it changed everything and made my life brighter and happier. But at the same time, too, it disrupted my worldly life to create this spiritual life that I was living in. Like my heart was, like my soul was like just happy, like I found God. You know, and then my worldly life was disrupted because I found God. Did my husband find God? Did anyone else around me find God? So that's the thing. It was like, oh, I was on this journey, and so lots of things happened after that.
So something interesting was you were in the fashion industry.
Right.
That was your career.
Yes.
And so, but that's not what you're doing now.
Right.
So.
Well, kind of, but yeah.
Well, yeah, kind of, but it's more geared towards God now.
Yes, of course.
So, I guess how was that like?
That was part of my journey. That was a big part of my journey because I came back and then I still love my job, but then at the same time too, while I was going through work life, I would ask the Lord, like, what is this? What am I doing in this career? Like, is this for me? And of course, he would bring me all these people. I was a sales rep for handbags. And so I met a lot of people, and I was speaking with, and I would share my pilgrimage story with all these people that were buying handbags, and we would have amazing talks, and I would sell handbags. But just talking about Jesus, and there are different faiths, Muslim, Baptist, and we connected. And it was beautiful, and I just loved it.
It was all about Jesus.
It was all about God, just the faith, the love, and I would just share what I knew, and then they would share why they love God, and I'm like, yes! We related on this, and it didn't matter what religion you were, and we just connected. I talked to even a Muslim, and we sat down for like an hour, and he said, you know, my religion has this kind of pilgrimage too, that they did that. They were praying for a baby, and we just connected. It was just so beautiful what God was doing. So I loved my job. I was like, okay, Lord, is this what I'm supposed to be doing? But then sure enough, things started happening where it was like, okay, he was slowly taking me out of that, which I didn't want to do because I loved it still, and I still saw God in it, but there was lots of discerning. And then we got closer to like, God's telling me to quit my job. And I was like, oh my gosh, how do I quit this job, which I do like? But then it's like, oh, I don't know. And I would pace back and forth. I would tell my husband, he's like, no, we need this to pay down our IVF debt. You know, I was like, oh yeah, it doesn't make sense. Why would God do that? You know, so then I was still living this, but there was still no baby. Like it was still like 6 months after the pilgrimage. And I was already like, the rosary was like a big thing that called to me afterwards, because when I prayed the rosary, there was like times I prayed the rosary before going to the pilgrimage that I was like, those were some of my signs of like to go on the pilgrimage, because praying the rosary, all of a sudden I'm crying. Like, why do I understand this? So coming back, I was like, that rosary was just so amazing to me that there was no pretty rosaries at any of the Catholic gift shops. So then of course I was in the fashion industry. So I made my own with like old necklaces and stuff that had pretty beads. So I made my own, people liked it. And then that's what I just started doing. And I would make it. And then I think I just posted, like I was going to a trade show for handbags, but I posted my bracelets and someone said, oh, where can you get that? And I was like, oh, I can make you a few, you know, and then I was like, oh, this is like a bit. So I started my side business with this while I was still working. And then I was still asking questions like, Lord, what do you want me to do here? Why am I still, what do I want me doing? And then sure enough, the handbag industry was kind of like, it was started to feel like,
this is like high-end bags?
Yeah, high-end bags. And I was just like, oh, I wasn't feeling it anymore. And sales were going down, but it was like time to go, but at the same time too, I didn't want to, because this was like my career. I'm like, okay, I could make this all happen, but because I don't know, God was really nudging me a lot of times. And of course I still was wanting what I was doing. And I was like, there's lots of battle. And I was like, oh my gosh, God wants me to quit my job. And I was like, oh, I'm supposed to like do these bracelets. I was like, I can't do that. And then like the salary just doesn't make sense, you know? And then I was just like, oh. And then my husband just kept hearing me every week, every month saying, God's telling me to. And then I guess his heart softened, because it was him that said, babe, God keeps telling you all these things and you keep saying you hear God and then you still don't do it. I'm like, oh, okay. I was using him as a crutch, thinking, okay, you know, I thought I had to keep working because of this. And I was like, okay. And the timing of that was providential, because then I had a talk with my boss, and she was very devout Catholic, where she would tell me stories that I thought she was like auntie or whatever, but then it went one ear out the other, because I didn't go on my pilgrimage yet, and I didn't know, and I wasn't struggling with a baby yet. But she would talk about these things. But then as soon as I got back from my pilgrimage, she didn't share those things anymore. And when I did, it wasn't like how I thought. Like, oh, I could connect with my boss and blah, blah, blah. But then it didn't happen. And then so when I finally said, okay, this is time to share, that I have to leave because I have this calling to leave. Because I didn't want to leave, and there's such nice people. Mm-hmm. And I was like, hey, I have this calling. So I felt like she would understand. She did understand. And then what she told me was, you know what, Reina, something like that happened to me before. And fast forward 10 years later, I don't hear God's voice anymore. And she's still devout, praying the rosary and stuff. But for some reason, when she said that, I said, oh, I felt at peace to like leave. Mm-hmm. You know, there was still that connection up until she said that. And I'm like, okay, well, you know what? Now I said, you know, well, I really feel the call that I have to leave. And so I'm going to put my 2 weeks in. And then sure enough, 2 weeks in, I said that. And then I guess 2 weeks after I had left the company, 2 weeks after, I found out I was pregnant. Yeah, and so that was amazing. And
that's pretty cool, because it's kind of like God was like, how bad do you want your job?
Right.
Because I guess the baby wasn't in the picture.
Yeah.
Because you just come back. Yeah, you went to the pilgrimage.
Yeah.
And you were praying for a baby.
Yeah.
But then it's like, oh, do you want this worldly job, or do you want to, in ways, like serve me?
Right.
And you knew, it's like, I'm going to take a financial hit. Like, I work for this company that's paying me really well. Now I'm going to start my own business.
Right.
That's kind of a big leap, right?
Yeah. Carlos and I have had so many conversations about it. Like, what do we do? But then it was when he finally said, you know, you say you hear God's voice, but then you're not doing it. Like, as if he was waiting for me to just like, okay, if you really hear it, then do it. But then I was thinking, okay, well, I'm gonna have to listen to my husband. So it's kind of like I can't. But then him saying that, and the timing of when it happened was just perfect. Was that God's timing? So it was all providential, because in retrospect,
you quit, mm-hmm. and then 2 weeks later, you're pregnant.
That's right. And then there's more to that, because we were pregnant, and so we were happy. And we were on our second pilgrimage now, because it was like more than a year, or I can't remember exactly the time, but we were going to go on our second pilgrimage with the same group to New Mexico to the miraculous staircase. And on that trip, I miscarried that baby that was from God and all of this stuff. And
the one that you found out.
Yeah.
2 weeks.
Yeah. So we were so happy, we were so excited, and then of course we found out that we went on a pilgrimage and we were happy about it. I was seeing pictures of Mama Mary pregnant at these pilgrimages. There was a site, I was like, oh, like this makes sense. But then that night, after seeing the staircase of the St. Joseph staircase,
Yes.
that night I started bleeding. And then, yeah, it was like a panic mode. And then I was with all of our friends, our group, and they were all going, we were gonna all supposed to meet for dinner. And they were all coming from different places. Some were driving into the hotel, and then others were just walking to the place. And I was like, you guys, please pray for me. I'm bleeding. And they're like, oh my gosh. And then I said, I don't think we're gonna make it to dinner. And then each one of them turned around and wherever they were, like I guess they saw a big rainbow over the hotel that we were staying at. And each one of them sent me a picture. And they didn't know they were all doing that. They were all in different places. You know, they all sent me a picture, and I was like, oh, I just felt so much peace, right? And then I just know that pilgrimage was for my husband's heart to have a conversion, because there's a lot of questions he started asking, like, God gave us, you know, we went on a pilgrimage and he gave us a baby, why would he take it away? And there was a lot of that, but I was still at peace. I was like, do you understand that we had a baby naturally? And I'm not that old, we could still keep trying, you know? And so it was just like, there was still so much hope, like that rainbow and just everything. But there's still that struggle in it, but there was still so much hope because of the graces from, I guess, Garabandal and all the graces leading up to to go on that pilgrimage. It was just like I could connect the dots so easily for some reason. And so, then we...
So you're on the second pilgrimage in Mexico, and then you miscarried there?
I miscarried there. We flew home. We rushed home while everyone was still doing the pilgrimage because there was still a few more days left. But we ended up flying home. My parents were with us on that trip. And they were like, oh yeah, flying home, because I was just bleeding out and I had to go to the doctor to see if I really miscarried. I honestly didn't miscarry I was just bleeding there. And then when I came home after a few appointments, I slowly miscarried. So it was just the start of it. And then, there was just a lot of, I'm trying to understand and just still loving God so much, you know, through all of that struggle. And then just, you know, like my husband trying to go through it all and understand. And then, I think it was a month or two after that, we were pregnant and it stuck.
Oh, praise
and
God.
And then we had Isaac. So, and so our miracle baby, our rainbow baby happened.
And so now, how long, because a question might be, okay, so you got what you wanted from God, now you can go back to living your worldly life.
Yeah, no.
So how long I would say that you're on fire.
Yeah.
I mean, I talk to you and you get very intense about God and stuff.
Yeah.
Did it ever fade from
No,
that?
even talking about it right now, my heart's just jumping. Like, oh my gosh, like I'm reliving it
So
again. I just know how
long
I
has
felt.
it been?
Oh gosh, it's been like 6 years.
So
now?
6 years you've been on
Yeah.
fire for
the Lord. Oh my gosh, and it just keeps getting stronger and stronger. And I was just party girl turned prayer girl.
And you definitely, looking at you before,
Yeah.
would you ever think that this is where you would be?
No, not at all. Not at all. No. It was definitely not something I had expected, but everything that I want and that my heart desires, and I'm living it and I love it and I can't even ask for anything more. It's beautiful.
So in this experience, God showed you his presence, how real he is, right?
Right.
So what advice, and we'll end with this, right? For people that kind of are just going through the motions, or people that don't really believe that God is real, what can you, share with them? And something very short,
Something very short. Well, honestly, I just feel like open your heart and ask questions.
What does that mean?
Talk to God.
What does that mean, open your heart?
Just whatever you feel about God, know it. If you hate God right now, if you love God right now, if you're just sad about God right now, if you don't know God, admit what relationship you have with God. You have to acknowledge what kind of relationship you have with God. And then from there, you can ask him, show me, what do all these people that love God have? Just ask the Lord to show and to build this relationship with you, because he will, and he did for me. And so I just have confidence that he will in everyone's hearts, because he lives in all of us, and it's us to find him. All these years, 6 years of praying and trying to understand, and how I said that he put all this wisdom in my heart and it's in me to articulate what's happening. Like honestly, he's always been there, and it was our own sin and our own brokenness that covers all of that, and we just like slowly take all that off to hear him. And so you can't do that without a relationship, because then, and God does all of that. All we can do is just ask the questions so we can get answers.
Here he is.
And here's my baby. This is my Isaac boy. How old are you now?
5.
5. God.
All right, so on that note, thank you, Jesus, for all that you've done. And I pray that you touch the viewers out there.
Me too. Thank you guys.